Hi everybody. Long time no see each other, no talk. I hope you guys are doing pretty good. Today what I'd like to do is go over the PowerPoint called Experimental Inking Techniques Part 2. I know that many of you can follow along the PowerPoint and you're good, you're fine. But some of us need to see these techniques happen in front of us in order to understand. Okay, so just to backtrack a little bit, part one of the inking techniques, you were using, or you're asked to use a quill or a pen and ink, and we sort of reviewed how to do these before we went on our break here. So I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about it, just as a review and a refresher. But this second PowerPoint that I'm going to show you, you're not going to be using these. You're mostly going to be using a variety of materials you can find at home and a brush. But I definitely wanted to kind of talk about, because I don't know if I covered it very well, the difference between the pens and how to use the permanent ink correctly. Okay, so as I told you guys, this is an inkwell, and inside of it is permanent ink, and this little cover is called an ink dropper, and it looks like this, and the top of it you can squeeze, and that's a good thing because it helps you kind of, if you don't like dipping your brush into the inkwell and you want to put it on a palette, you can definitely take some from here like that. Okay, but for the most part, and then this thing, you have to be really careful with this thing because it'll roll away. So what I like to do is just find an extra cup or something, a plate, and put it there so it doesn't roll away on me. And just to review the different kinds of pens. So here we have 3 different sizes and 3 different kinds of nibs. This little metal part is called a nib. And each of them will give me a different kind of line. So I'll start with the smallest one. So this little one is called a Quill. It's very tiny, and as you can imagine, because how small it is, it's gonna make a very thin, fragile line. So if I write with it, and this is the way you hold it, like this. If you hold it like this is holding it upside down, and you're probably not gonna get that good nice dark line that you want. But if you hold it like this, right, you can see, right? But the thing with this one is, it's fine to do your projects and your assignment with the Quill if that's all you have, but it's going to take you longer because it's small, and so it's going to run out of ink faster, and you're going to have to keep dipping it into the inkwell. But this is fine if that's all you have. Okay, I like to clean them if I'm not going to use them. I like to take the extra ink off of them. And definitely when you are done using these, remember you want to use alcohol to clean them, not water. Okay? Alright, so the next one, the next size up, is this one. And some of you may have purchased this one. This one is going to give me not such a thin line, a little bit thicker. And I'm not going to have to reload this one as much. Right? Okay, so that's that one. And then the last one, which is the kind that I wanted you to buy, it's a bigger one, but it still comes to a point, sharp point. That's going to be the best one. Okay, there's some that look, so this one looks like this. It has a sharp point, and a slit and then an opening, right? The other ones are the ones that are flat like this. And as you can imagine, you know, they will make like a broad, they'll make like a line that's thick like this if you use them. So try not to use this one. Stick with this one. This is pretty good for drawing and writing. Okay? All right. So I just wanted to go over these really quickly with you guys, just in case you had questions about how to use them or whatever. But what we're gonna do today is we're gonna practice some experimental techniques, and I'm just gonna follow along with the PowerPoint. Okay. So, first thing that you're gonna want to do is gather up all the materials that you need, and you're gonna need a lot of them. So aside from the ink, you're gonna also need a brush, and there's a variety of brushes that you can use. I wanted to show you them, just talk about them a little bit so that you know which one is best for it. So of course brushes come in different sizes and shapes, and for what we're doing, you're going to be pretty well off with a brush like this. This is a round watercolor brush, or you can have a flat, this is like a diagonal cut brush like this. This is fine. This is pretty good, but it's probably a little too big for you. It's a watercolor brush, and I know that it's a watercolor brush because it's really soft. So that's good for absorbing a lot of water. That's why it's a good brush. But you're probably better off with something a little smaller, maybe something like this, okay? Don't use this brush. This is a fan brush, and this brush is used for blending or creating textures. So if you have this, just put it to the side. You won't be needing it today, okay? And then I wanted to talk about brushes like this that say Bristle. Okay, this is a Bristle flat brush. These brushes, although they're soft, they're not made for watercolor or ink. They're actually oil brushes. That's why they're a little bit stiffer. They don't bounce. They're not as soft as these. Okay, you can see the difference. See how bristly it is? It looks like and some of the little things are coming off of it. So you want something like this, not this. Okay? And it doesn't matter if your brushes have short or long handles. It doesn't really matter. As long as they're soft, you're gonna be just fine. Okay? All right. So besides ink and brushes, you're gonna need some paper. I'm gonna be working on watercolor paper. This is watercolor paper, and it's the best paper for this assignment because it's a little thicker, and because it's a little thicker, it absorbs water better. It's made for any techniques that have to use water, and since we're doing brush and ink, we're going to be definitely using water or liquids. So this is a pretty good piece of paper. But if all you have is white drawing paper, then you could definitely use white drawing paper, okay? But watercolor paper is the best. All right, and then you're gonna need paper towel or napkins. You're gonna need a ruler. You're gonna need a piece of cardboard, something to scrape with. You could just take a little piece of paper like this, a little piece of your watercolor paper, and just cut it, and that will be just fine because we're going to be using it to scrape the ink. So you need something like that. You're going to need an old toothbrush and paper clip or a thumbtack, some tape. I have some leaves ready to go, a straw, a palette. You can either use something like this, or you could just use a plate. Either one will work, or you can have a bunch of little cups. That's fine, because we're going to be diluting the ink. And then definitely a cup of water and some alcohol, rubbing alcohol. I know this might be hard to come by these days, but see if you have a little bit of that you can use. We're only going to use a very small amount. And a Q-tip. Okay, so it's a bunch of materials, but we're going to have a good time sort of using them and messing around with this stuff. Okay, all right, so let's get started. You'll be practicing several inking techniques using a variety of tools. Some are common household items, some you already have in your toolbox. For this unit, we're going to be focusing on texture. And texture is the way something looks like it feels. And we can use ink to make a variety of marks and textures depending on the tools that we use to make those marks. And texture is something that artists like to include in their artworks because it makes their artworks look a little more interesting. Okay, so let's begin. Before you begin, have all your materials, okay? And then what I'm going to do in the PowerPoint, I actually write out the instructions, but I'll just speak them as we go. You're going to need to have your paper ready to go and cut the size that you need. I suggest 4x6. These are, I think these are 6x9, a little bit bigger that I need, but I'm probably going to cut these down for the book. But this is a good size, and you're going to need about 15 pieces of paper. That's a lot, but yeah, you're going to need to make sure that you have your paper ready to go. So if you want to pause the video now and get all your stuff together and then come back, that's fine. Okay, so here we go. Technique number 1. Okay, so technique number 1 is called dip, brush, and draw a variety of lines. All right, that's just getting used to dipping the brush into the ink, controlling how much ink is on the brush. You don't want it dripping, and just practicing drawing some lines. Okay, so I want you to try holding the brush like a pencil and drawing a fast line. Okay, so holding it like a pencil and then drawing some fast lines. Okay, cool. And you can label them as you go, or you can do it after. Okay, and then I want you to try to use not just the brush side, but the back of the brush. So go ahead and dip the back of the brush. I know that's a little bit weird, and try to draw some lines with that and see what you get. Okay. All right. You can already tell the difference between these lines. They're very different, okay? So sometimes you never know what kind of line you need, and it's nice to know that you can use the brush in a variety of ways, okay? So this is back of brush, okay? And then let's try using the brush on its side. So instead of just drawing with the tip of the brush, let's hold it down on its side and paint some lines across. Or we can go up and down. Okay, so that is the side of the brush. Okay, and then the last one that I wanted you to do is drawing with the tip of the brush. So notice how I have to hold the brush, instead of like a pencil, I have to hold it vertically upright in order to just get the tip of the brush. Okay. It's sort of the way people who do calligraphy would hold a brush. Okay, so that is the tip of the brush. Okay, good. Number one is done. Okay, so you can set this aside. Ink usually dries pretty fast unless you're using a lot of it, like here where we did the side of the brush. If I run my fingers over it, it's pretty dry even though I used a lot. Okay, so I'm just gonna set this one aside, right? And then the PowerPoint says to now clean your brush. So you're gonna want to dip your brush into the water, okay? And just take a paper towel and gently, you want to be real gentle with the hairs. Just clean it off and sort of reshape it back to the way that it was. And now we're ready for technique number 2, okay? So technique number 2 is called wet into wet. And we're going to be drawing with the side of our brush and the tip of our brush. And so I like to kind of label it as I go. And a lot of these techniques are also, the names are the same if you use watercolor. So if you're into watercolor, you've probably heard some of these names. Okay, so wet into wet just means that you're starting with a wet surface. So we're going to take some, I'm taking a different brush, a clean, brand new brush, and all I'm doing is taking some of this water and brushing it over my watercolor paper, okay? Because I want to have a saturated surface, okay? Okay, and then quickly before it dries, I'm gonna try the techniques. So the first one is to use the side of the brush and go slow so that you can see what happens when the ink touches the water. You can see that it's starting to expand. And then the next one is just to try to draw with the tip of the brush. So cool, right? Looks like magic. And so say that I go to where there's no more ink, right, or sorry, where there's no more water. You notice that here it doesn't spread out. Only where there's water will this technique do that. Okay? All right. So I'm actually gonna let this one dry, and then, well, actually I could probably just label it here on the side. So this is wet into wet using side of the brush, and this is using tip of the brush. Now notice that I'm not using the back of the paper. You don't want to use the back of the paper for any of these techniques because it's just not going to work out. You actually have to have them all on separate sheets of paper. And I'm already kind of thinking at the back of my head, like, oh, what's my book going to look like, and how am I going to attach the pages together? So I'm sort of leaving the left side free of anything so that I can make the traditional, I'll probably just punch some holes like this, take a hole punch and I'll probably just punch a couple holes on the side here. And then when I'm done with all the pages, I'll attach it. So I'm thinking about like how I'm gonna attach my book, okay? It's probably gonna go like that. All right, so done with wet into wet. Let's move on to the next technique. I'm gonna want to, and on the PowerPoint, just to make it easier, I did put, don't forget to clean your brush and dry it, okay? All right, so our next technique is line weight. Right, so for line weight, number 3, line weight. Okay, line weight just means that you are changing how thick and thin or how light and heavy a line is. And you can do that by how much pressure and how long you hold the brush down to the paper and how you kind of maneuver your hand. So if I want a line that goes light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure, I'm gonna start light, and then I'm gonna push down, and then I'm gonna bring it back up, and then push down, bring it back up, and then push down. See how I can change the pressure and the quality. So line weight has to do with the line quality. It's another way to talk about it. So right here is light pressure, and then here and here is heavy pressure. Okay, so go ahead and just take your time and practice creating some light. And what you kind of don't want, you don't want to lift the brush off the paper. You kind of want to let the brush do its thing. See how beautiful that is? I wanted to show you what it would look like if you used a wide brush too. Like say this is the kind of brush you have. You can still do it, but in order to do it with this one is you would use sort of this side of it, and then this side, and then this